All right, so the real answer is that it really does take time and it's going to require some patience for your marketing strategy to work. So I do want to say thank you to the person who sent the question in and someone had said that, hey, I've been doing what you talked about, what you mentioned about getting out there, doing some advertising, marketing, creating content, and I haven't seen any customers come up yet. And to be very honest with you, I will tell you, it takes a little bit more time than you often think. And I had planted some things in my yard because my team had asked me about doing something outside of just working. And so one of the things that I did is I planted this, I guess this is a raspberry bush and some other vegetables back here. And what I will tell you is it took a lot longer than I thought for it to grow. But when it did start to grow, I mean, as you can probably see here, if you can see, like all the raspberries are starting to grow in. I would say it took a long time, in my opinion, it took a long time for it to grow, but it's one of those things that reminded me of when we were going through the phase when we first started creating content and stuff like that, is that it probably took us about 6 months before we really got traction. Now, part of that was I started the business in April 1st of 2020, so it was COVID-19, had the pandemic with all the shutdowns had just started like in late March when I was actually starting my business. So some of the delay was just because people didn't know what the heck was going on with COVID. And then also other aspects of it is that no one knew who I was when I started my firm. And I didn't start at the best time, where people had a lot of confidence in their business. So I just stayed consistent over time of creating content. And one of the things that I did is I said, okay, all right, how can I just consistently meet more and more people who potentially are looking for my services? And also one of the things that I did is I stopped going into every conversation trying to sell something right away because I knew that it was going to take time to build that level of trust with people. So what I actually did was I said, I'm going to focus on creating content that is valuable for my audience. So at the time, we were working with restaurant owners back then. And so what I did is I started a podcast called The Food and Finance Show. And what I would do is I would bring on a restaurant owners as guests to interview them to talk about, hey, what are you seeing? What are you doing that's working? What are you doing that's not working? And the show became actually a helpful resource to other restaurant owners because other restaurant owners were like, hey, I don't have time to go attend networking meetings and stuff like that. But by watching this podcast, I started to hear about other ideas. What are other people doing to be successful? And that was something that was really big and really helpful for them. And so as we started to do that more and more, one of the things that I started to realize is that focusing on building value was the key to actually building relationships, which then led to people sending us referrals, or it built a brand so that people knew, hey, if you had a restaurant, and at that time, if you had a restaurant and you wanted a really good accountant, you would call us. And then over time, we realized that, hey, restaurants weren't the ideal kind of platform for us or the ideal client base for us. So what we did is we ended up switching and we started focusing on looking at other industries, like what other industries would be a better fit. And over time, we came down to law firms because we understood their business model. We liked the profit margins that law firms had, and we recognized that they really needed our help. And we had a unique ability to be able to explain the financial information in a way that they could understand it. And when we combined all of that together, it became a great way for us to just, hey, switch gears and say, hey, we're going to focus on law firms. And again, we went back to the beginning of, all right, we got to build our reputation. And what I will say is, when building the reputation, when it came down to law firms, it actually took us longer to build a reputation in the legal industry because the trust factor was higher. We were asking for a higher price point, and they were, I guess you would say, it was a completely different industry that they have a special skill. And so they knew that, hey, if I'm going to hire an accountant, they need to be good at what they do because it really matters. Because if you get the bookkeeping, all that stuff wrong for a law firm, what ends up happening is that you can actually cause them to either lose their license or to lose their practice. We had to really put in a lot of content work and a lot of effort to really develop our brand and to develop the trust. We showed up at conferences, we started speaking, we started writing articles, we created content, we created a podcast, and we just really continue to feed those relationships. And as we showed up more and more, we developed a solid brand. And I would say it probably took us about a year to really develop a solid brand in the legal industry. Now, we were still getting some clients during that time, but to really get to a steady flow of clients, it took us about a year to really develop a solid brand. And it brings me back to the example. I know how I'll try to zoom in for you so you can see there we go. All of the raspberries that are starting to grow in. And it's one of those things where, like I said, as it took us some time to really start to develop our brand, it really felt like it took longer than I wanted it to. But the key was being consistent. And we also made some changes along the way, because we would talk to people who were in marketing within the legal industry. When we showed up to conferences, we would develop more relationships. We would figure out, where are people paying attention, or where are they showing up, and how can we add more value? And what I will say is, once we got to a critical point where our brand was developed and established enough, we didn't really have to keep repeating the cycle over and over. We kept building on top of the brand we already had, to the point now, other accounting firms often send us referrals. If someone meets a lawyer, they're like, hey, you need to talk to Terrell. And even other people in the legal industry, like people who help implement technology, or practice management advisors, or people who help others with marketing, they send us referrals because we just stayed consistent. We built trust. And I will tell you, it may feel like it is going to take longer than it should. And I felt the exact same way, like I said, when I was planting this stuff in this garden. It took a lot longer than I thought. But when the results started to show up, I was like, man, like they're showing up pretty good, but it took some time to get there. So I think the same thing is happening in your business, where your marketing strategy will take some time, but what you can do is continue to stay consistent and also focus on delivering value. And then you can be creative, because you can do video content, you can do audio content, you can do written content. You can find out what types of associations or organizations are your ideal clients a part of, and then how can you get involved with those? And I would say, not to just get involved because you want to go sell, but how do you get involved to provide value, to be helpful? Because that was one of the big things we did with the American Bar Association. They needed help creating articles around finance content to help law firms. And we just volunteered, and we just said, hey, we're going to keep showing up and keep helping. And hey, I'm not here because I'm just trying to win new business. Hey, I'm here because I want to add value. And it gave us a chance to learn a lot about the legal industry. And after doing it for a while, people were just like, hey, this guy knows his stuff. He knows what he is doing. And we started getting a lot more referrals. And I think the same thing can happen to you, but you do have to be consistent. And I will say, you have to exercise some patience. And just like with planting a garden, like you're going to have to keep sowing seeds. You're going to have to take care of those seeds, like nurture those seeds, nurture those relationships. The people that you've met, don't just meet them and then just forget about them. Every now and then you need to check in on them, see how those people are doing. Like our referral sources, like a lot of times, like I'll meet up with them and see them at conferences. We'll go out to dinner. I'll see how they're doing, see how their family's doing, to really develop a trusting relationship. Because the more we have a stronger relationship and the more I develop trust and credibility with them, the more likely they are to send me more referrals. And I think the same thing can happen for you, but I will be honest, it will feel like it is taking longer than it should. But that doesn't mean that something is wrong. It just means that you're just going through the normal process that everybody goes through when they're building a brand. So I hope that's helpful for you. But thank you again for sending in the questions. As you can see, like I said, I'm outside working in the garden area because I realize I can probably answer the questions while I'm doing other things. So thank you for the questions. Continue to send them in. I will try my best to get to them and create videos and answers, podcast episodes to address the questions. And if I don't do that, I usually try to get back via email, either send you an email or direct message to help give you an answer. So thank you so much for sending in your questions, and all the best to you in your continued journey of building your business.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Finance and Accounting Show. If you like what you heard, don't be selfish. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and then share this with a friend, because you know a business owner that could definitely use this insight. So be sure to hit that subscribe button, share it with a friend, and turn on the notification bell so you get all the updates when we release a new episode.